The rain on Kingsway Road did not fall, it hammered until the potted palms bowed sideways across the marble driveway. On that Thursday at 4:12, two men in halogen security uniforms dragged a barefoot woman across that driveway toward the gate. Her right elbow struck stone. She did not scream. She had slept in the staff quarters of that house for 11 days, scrubbing bathrooms in exchange for shelter, until 40 minutes earlier, a diamond bracelet she had never touched was found under her pillow for the second time. On the covered veranda, dry, a Lagos matriarch in a lilac boo-boo stubbed a cigarette against a marble ashtray and said very quietly, "Throw her into the road. If she returns, break something." Nobody in that house yet knew the barefoot woman being dragged into the rain owned the private bank holding the mortgage on this land, this house, and the lilac dress her accuser was wearing. Grab your popcorn and enjoy, but before you settle in, do me one small favor. Tap that like button, hit subscribe so the next chapter finds you, and drop a comment telling me your city and the time on your clock right now. Are you watching from Lagos at midnight, London after work, Atlanta before bed, Nairobi over dinner, or a quiet street somewhere I have never heard of? Wherever you are, whatever hour it is where you are sitting, close the door behind you. This story is not one you want to walk away from halfway. 87 days before that rain on Kingsway Road, on a Tuesday morning in the private study of a house in Ikoyi that most of Lagos will never step inside, Amara Coker signed a document that 7 lawyers had begged her not to sign. The study smelled of old books and lemongrass. Sunlight fell through the tall windows in long yellow strips across the parquet floor. On the desk sat a leather folder, a fountain pen her father had left her, and a photograph of that same father, a big Igbo man with tired eyes, taken 3 weeks before he died in July of the previous year. The document was called Reality Check Protocol. 90 days, 6 cities, no security detail visible, no Coker Global name, no card, no phone. The lawyer opposite her, a small woman named Ada, closed her folder gently. "Madame, at least allow 1 bodyguard within 20 meters. Musa will be within 400, Amara said. "Selling suya from a cart if I know Musa. Madame, the fund committee is expecting an answer by November." Amara looked out at the compound where 2 gardeners were pruning frangipani. "That is why I am starting today. 50 billion naira is a lot of money to throw at the wrong problem." She signed. Ada gathered her folders and stood. "One more thing, Ma," Ada said at the door. "Please, do not die out there. I will try." By 11 that morning, Amara was in the back of a battered Toyota Sienna, dressed in a brown market dress she had borrowed from her housekeeper's sister. Her hair was already combed roughly. Her nails, which she had cut short herself in the bathroom that morning, felt strange against her palms. Musa drove her as far as the second bridge in Yaba and dropped her off with 300 naira in a folded handkerchief. "Ma, are you sure?" he said through the driver's window. 90 days, Musa. Not one word to anyone, not even to Uncle Chidi." Musa drove away. Amara turned around, looked at Lagos as if she was seeing it for the first time in her life, and began to walk. That same Tuesday, in a glass tower on Adiolodeku Street on Victoria Island, Tunde Adeyemi ended a board meeting by saying no to the biggest deal of the year. The room went quiet. His CFO, a young Yoruba man in a tight blue suit, placed his pen down carefully. "Boss, this is Coker Global. The mid-market fintech play alone is worth 6 billion naira in the first year." "I know what it is worth," Tunde said. "I do not know who runs Coker anymore. Their old chairman died last July. Since then it has been silence. No public appearances, no press. Just a proxies signing on behalf of a chairwoman nobody has met. I am not merging Adeyemi Digital with a ghost. But boss, when their chairwoman shows her face, we will talk. Until then, this table does not touch Coker paper." The meeting broke. Tunde stayed at the head of the table alone for a while, turning his own gold cufflink in slow circles. His phone rang. It was his mother. "Tunde, my son, Chief Balagan has confirmed that Halima wants the 28th of December for the traditional. Do not embarrass me by saying you have not booked the hall." I said next year, not this year. "Tunde, I am 59 years old. Do you want me to die before my only son marries into a proper family?" He closed his eyes. "I will call the hall today, Mummy." She hung up. Outside his window, the sky over Lagos was already grey. Somewhere south of that sky, on a wet mattress under the 3rd mainland bridge, a woman he had never met was sharing a piece of boiled yam with 2 other women he had never seen and had never bothered to think about. That was day 1. By day 63 of the protocol, Amara Coker had slept in 6 shelters, 3 petrol station forecourts, 2 churches, 1 abandoned school in Onitsha, and 11 doorways in Lagos. She had been offered work as a cleaner 8 times, as a prostitute twice, and as a spare wife once. She had been slapped once, kicked twice, spat at 3 times, and given free food by strangers on 9 separate occasions, 3 of those by other women who had less than she did. She kept a small notebook hidden in her waistband. In it she wrote in tiny English, numbers, dates, names, 1 sentence per person. She was building a map. Day 63 fell on a Wednesday in October. It rained without stopping from 4 in the afternoon. By 6:30 she was crouched under the awning outside a Chicken Republic on Awolowo Road, trying to keep the notebook dry inside her bra. Her feet had started to feel far away. The security guard came out at 6:42, tapping his stick against the tiles. "Auntie, you cannot sit here. This is a private property. I am not asking for anything, only the awning. Until the rain stops. Move, please." 15 minutes. He hit the outside of her thigh with the stick, not hard. Enough to make a point. "Are you deaf?" I said, "Move." She stood slowly, because her knees were locked from sitting. At 6:43, a black Mercedes G-Wagon pulled up to the curb. A man stepped out under an umbrella held by his driver. He was wearing a dark blue suit, no tie, an expensive watch. Later, Amara would remember that his shoes were not showy. That was the first thing she noticed. His shoes were plain, well-made, and already scuffed at the heel. "What is happening here?" he said. The guard straightened. "Ogre, this beggar woman was disturbing customers. I did not ask her, I asked you. Did you hit her with that stick?" "Ogre, small, only, give me your name and your supervisor's number." The guard's mouth opened and closed. He gave the number. The man turned to Amara, in Nigerian English, but soft. "Auntie, are you injured?" She thought about her answer for a full second. She could have wept. She could have thrown herself at his feet. Either would have been useful theater. Instead, she said quietly, "I am managing." "When did you last eat?" "This morning. Bread." He looked at her, really looked, the way people who have money and time to spare rarely bother to look at people who have neither. She stared back. She could see him noticing things. The way she was standing, the straightness. The way she did not flinch when he moved his hand. He said, "My mother has a compound near here. There is a room in the staff quarters. It is small, but it is dry. You can stay one night. Tomorrow I will help you find a shelter with proper social workers. What is your name?" She had prepared for this. Zara. Zara Onu. "I am Tunde. Come." Amara did not move for a moment. She had been on the streets for 63 days. She had refused offers from 3 men who wanted things she was not selling. This one was different, and she needed to know why. She looked at his face and saw exactly one thing. He was tired of not helping people. That was all. He was not saving her. He was, in a very small way, saving himself. She followed him to the car. Musa, standing across the road disguised as a suya seller, saw everything. He noted the number plate. He noted the time. He noted in a text to a private number that his madam had just been picked up by the CEO of Ademi Digital, and that she had gone willingly. At the gate of the Ademi compound on Kingsway Road, Ikoyi, the intercom crackled, and then Madame Ronkademi's voice came through, high and cold. "Tunde, who is that in the car with you?" "Mummy, please open, I will explain inside." "Tunde, answer me." "A woman who needs a bed for the night, Mummy, that is all." There was a long silence. Then the gate began very slowly to open. Madame Ronka was standing on the covered veranda in a lilac bubu when they pulled up. Her hair was wrapped in a matching jeel. Her arms were folded. She did not come down the steps. Tunde got out first. He turned back to Amara and offered his hand. She did not take it. She got out on her own. The rain had softened to a drizzle. Amara stood in the drive in her wet dress, her hair heavy against her neck, her bare feet flat on the marble. She looked up at the veranda. Madame Ronka looked down at her. Neither said a word for what felt like a long time. Then Ronka turned to Tunde and said, in the same soft voice she used when she wanted to be most cruel, "My son, what kind of madness did you bring into my compound tonight?" Amara did not lower her eyes. She stood on the marble. She waited to be assigned her cage. That was day 63. That was the beginning of 11 days that would end. One Thursday afternoon at exactly 4:12, with the scene you have already witnessed at the start of this story. But we are not there yet. The staff quarters at the Ademi compound sat behind the main house, past the kitchen, past the generator house, past the small vegetable garden where Madame Ronka's cook grew scent leaves. It was a single room with a thin mattress on a wooden frame, one high window, and a bucket for water. There was no lock on the door. On the first night, Amara did not sleep. She lay on the mattress in the dark and listened. She listened to the distant hum of the generator through the wall. She listened to the muffled voice of Madame Ronque on the phone in the main house, complaining to somebody, a friend, a sister, a pastor, about her soft-hearted son and the beggar he had dragged home. She listened to her own breathing, quiet and careful, because she was not yet sure if there was a camera in the room. She had already decided there probably was. At 5:30 in the morning, a young girl who introduced herself only as Small Blessing knocked on the door and pushed inside without waiting. She was carrying a mop, a bucket, a bar of coarse soap, and a folded uniform. Madame said you must clean the 4 downstairs bathrooms before 6:30, then the 2 upstairs bathrooms before 8. Then you must wash Diamond and Cartier before 9. Diamond is the small one. Cartier bites. Diamond and Cartier, the Madame's dogs, they are Pomeranians. Amara took the mop. For the next 11 days, Amara scrubbed floors, walked dogs, folded washing, weeded flower beds, and carried heavy trays of glass into the main house without breaking anything. She wore the same rough grey uniform every day. She washed it herself at night in the bucket. She ate the leftover food from the main house, always cold, always given without a plate, standing up in the kitchen doorway. She did not say much. When she did speak, she used a rougher Nigerian English than her natural one, dropping her final consonants slightly, softening her vowels. She kept her eyes down when Madame Ronque was in the room. She kept her ears open when she was not. By day 3 of her time in the compound, Amara had learned the following things. 1. Madame Ronque Adeyemi sat on the board of 4 separate charities in Lagos: the Lagos Widows Empowerment Trust, the Adeyemi Family Educational Foundation, the Ikoyi Anglican Compassion Committee, and one health charity Amara had already privately funded through her own foundation without ever meeting the trustees. This last discovery made Amara stop scrubbing a bathtub and sit down on its rim for a full minute in silence. 2. Tunde Adeyemi worked 12-hour days at the tower on Adeola Odeku Street, came home tired, ate quickly, and spent most of his evenings in his ground-floor study reading fintech reports. He was polite to Amara whenever their paths crossed. He greeted her. He asked after her feet. He noticed when she limped on the 3rd day and quietly left a tube of ointment outside her door that night. He never entered her room. He never lingered. 3. Halima Balogun visited the compound every other evening. She was 28, beautiful in the specific glossy way that expensive weekly appointments produce, and utterly convinced that the world had been arranged for her comfort. She parked her Range Rover across 2 spaces every time. She spoke to Amara in one register only, as one might speak to a piece of furniture that had suddenly, inconveniently, developed the ability to hear. On day 4, Amara was arranging fresh flowers as in the main sitting room when Halima walked in with her sister and dropped her Chanel handbag on the sofa. What is this thing standing in the corner? She is the new help, madam. Help? I thought Mummy Ronque had housegirls, not soaked rats. Come here, you. Amara turned. She did not step forward. Yes, madam. Look at me when I am speaking. What is your name? Zara, madam. Zara. From where? Which village? Nkalaga, madam. In Ebony. Ah, a village girl. Have you ever in your life seen 100,000 naira with your own eyes? No, madam. Halima laughed and turned to her sister. You see, this is why our country is stuck. People who have never seen money making decisions about our lives. Amara did not correct her. She had, in the past 2 financial years, personally signed off on capital allocations totaling around 4.1 billion naira. She continued arranging the flowers. She placed one white lily half a centimeter out of alignment on purpose so that Halima would have something to complain about. Halima complained about it. Amara adjusted it. Halima nodded, satisfied, and left the room with her sister. That night, in her staff quarters, Amara wrote in her hidden notebook. Day 4. HB never asked my age, never asked if I had eaten, never asked why I was on the streets. Considered me an artifact. This is data, not injury. On day 4, in the late afternoon, Amara was mopping the 2nd floor hallway when she heard, through the half-open door of the West Wing bedroom, a sound she recognized from her 2 years at Cambridge. A soft, whistling exhale at the end of each breath. She stopped mopping. She listened for 11 full breaths. She counted them against the second hand of the clock on the wall. 14 breaths in 1 minute, where 12 would have been the top of normal for a 78-year-old at rest. The whistle came at the end of every 3rd or 4th. Not asthma, not fluid, something in the vessels of the neck. She was almost sure. She stood outside that door for another minute. She could see through the gap a small pair of grey slippers by the bed and a wrinkled hand resting on the arm of a wheelchair. The hand was not moving. She heard footsteps on the stairs. She resumed mopping. Small Blessing came up with a tray of tea. Auntie. That is the Madam Grandmother. She does not like visitors. Do not stop in front of her door. I was mopping. I stopped for one moment. Small Blessing, has the Madam Grandmother seen a doctor recently? They took her to Reddington in September. They said her blood pressure is under control. Not her blood pressure, her breathing. Small Blessing looked confused. Auntie, she breathes fine. She talks fine. Do not confuse me. Amara nodded. She let it go. She finished the corridor. That night, in her staff quarters, she wrote in her notebook, Day 4, West Wing. Grandmother, 78. Whistle exhale. Left arm slack, left carotid probable. 2 weeks, perhaps 3. Nobody in this house is listening. She underlined the last sentence twice. On day 6, Amara was mopping the hallway outside Tunde's study when she heard him on a phone call with his CFO. The subject was Coker Global. He was pacing. Look, if the mystery chairwoman ever surfaces, we present the underserved market thesis first. 22 million Nigerians outside the formal banking system. That is our story, not the mid-market play. The bottom of pyramid play. That is where their foundation money should meet our tech. He paused, listened, then said something that made Amara stop mopping. No, I do not want a shortcut. If they cannot see the value on merit, I do not want the deal. I am not going to marry a Balogun and merge with a Coker in the same quarter. My mother can only handle one victory at a time. He laughed once, sharply, at his own joke. Amara resumed mopping. On day 8, at 7 in the morning, Amara was watering the frangipani at the far corner of the front garden when Tunde came down the driveway in his running clothes. He slowed. He stopped a respectful distance away. Zara, good morning. Good morning, sir. You are up early, the madam said. The frangipani must be watered before the sun is high, sir. He looked at the frangipani. He looked at her. He looked at the way she was holding the watering can with 2 hands. Level, the way somebody waters a plant when they actually care whether the plant lives. You know these plants, he said. My father had frangipani. Sir, where? She hesitated. In our compound. When I was small. Your compound. He said it neutrally. He was not accusing her of anything. A small compound, sir. In the village. He stood there for a moment. He was not, she realized, trying to catch her out. He was tired. He had come out to run, and now he was standing on his own driveway, not running because he was, for reasons he probably could not name, enjoying the fact that somebody in his mother's compound was doing an ordinary morning task with ordinary morning attention. Zara, my mother is not. She is not always kind to the staff. I want you to know that if she's kind in a way that crosses a line, you can come to me. Directly. I will not fire you for coming to me, do you understand? Yes, sir. I do not mean the small things. Every madame is sharp. I mean if she does something that would make a policeman file a report. That kind of line. Do you understand what I am telling you? I understand, sir. He nodded. He looked once more at the frangipani. Then he started to run. He ran 20 meters and then turned back. Zara. Yes, sir. Are you eating enough? The question was so unexpected that she took half a second to answer. Yes, sir. Good. Small Blessing is under strict instructions from me to overfeed anybody sleeping in the staff quarters. If she is not doing so, come to me. He ran. She watched him disappear down the drive. That evening in her notebook she wrote, Day 8. TA, good instincts, trapped by mother, not a bad man, also not brave enough yet. Marketing thesis solid. Ethics solid. Backbone under construction. Verdict, worth watching. She circled the last 3 words. That evening she found an excuse to enter his study while he was in the bathroom. A duster in her hand. On his desk was a marked-up printout, the mid-market versus bottom-of-pyramid analysis he had been discussing. She read 3 paragraphs quickly, standing over it with the duster paused in mid-air. His analysis was good. Not brilliant, but honest. He had done the maths himself, in the margins, in his own handwriting. He had not just outsourced the thinking to a consulting firm. She dusted the desk. She left the printout exactly as she had found it. She adjusted a pen half a centimeter so she would know, next time, whether he had touched the same page again. That was when she heard the door click behind her. She turned. Halima was standing in the doorway. Halima's face was very still. She had been drinking, not much. Enough. What are you doing in his study? Dusting, madam. Show me your hands. Amara held them up, empty except for the duster. Turn out your pockets. Amara turned out the 2 shallow pockets of her uniform. Nothing. Come with me. Halima walked her by the elbow to the staff quarters. She said nothing along the way. When they reached the door, she pushed Amara inside and said, Wait here. Amara waited. 2 minutes passed. Halima came back with something small in her hand. You do not know it yet, Zara from Ninkalagu, but you have just made a very stupid mistake. She lifted Amara's pillow. She placed a diamond tennis bracelet underneath it. She lowered the pillow. She smiled, a specific, private smile that had nothing to do with the situation and everything to do with her own imagination of how tomorrow would go, and left, closing the door behind her. Amara did not move the bracelet. She lay down. She listened to her own heartbeat, which had not sped up at all. Halima was moving, she noted, before Halima was pushed. That meant Halima had already sensed something. That meant Amara had made a mistake. Somewhere in the last 3 days she had said, or done something not quite village enough. She rehearsed the last 72 hours in her head. She narrowed it to a single moment. On day 5, when Madame Ronke had dropped a teacup, Amara had caught it on the way down. Without thinking, in one smooth motion, reflex, she had straightened up and returned to her position at the sideboard, but she had felt Halima's eyes on her for the rest of that afternoon. Data, not injury, she wrote in her notebook. Never move quickly again. The next morning at 7:15, the shouting began. Halima had discovered her missing bracelet. Madame Ronke, hearing the commotion, joined in immediately. The two of them, together, marched to the staff quarters with the cook and Small Blessing as witnesses. Search her room. Small Blessing searched. She found the bracelet under the pillow within 30 seconds. She looked up, terrified, holding it out on her palm. Madame Ronke sat down heavily on the wooden chair by the door and put her hand over her heart. Oh God, I opened my house, I fed her. My son gave her a bed. This is what she does. Madam, I did not put it there, Amara said. She said it quietly. She did not fall to her knees. She stood in the center of the room with her hands folded in front of her. Call Tunde! Madame Ronke shouted at the cook. Call the police! The cook ran off. Halima, standing behind her future mother-in-law, was watching Amara's face. Amara let her look. She let her look at exactly what a woman looks like when she is trying, on the outside, not to blink. Tunde arrived from upstairs in 15 minutes. He was already dressed for work. His tie was still loose around his neck. His mother pointed at the bracelet, which was now sitting on the wooden chair. She was crying. Tunde, my son. She stopped. Call the police. Tunde picked up the bracelet. He weighed it in his palm. He looked at Amara. She looked back at him. She did not look at his mother. She did not look at Halima. Zara, he said, did you take this bracelet? No, sir. Do you know how it came to be under your pillow? She was silent for exactly 2 seconds. Long enough to signal she had considered lying and had decided against it. I have an idea, sir, but I have no evidence. Something crossed Tunde's face. It was not belief. It was closer to interest. Madame Ronke stood up. Tunde, are you going to defend this dog against your own mother? Call the police. Tun turned to his mother, very calm. Mummy, if she is a thief, we do not need police for a bracelet. We need to be sure. I will not have my staff arrested and my compound in the papers before I am sure. Give me 1 night. Tunde, 1 night, Mummy, please. Then, if I am wrong, we call the police tomorrow. Madame Ronke stared at her son for a long moment. Then she reached out and slapped Amara across the face, hard, in front of everyone. Amara's head turned to the side. She did not raise a hand. She did not cry out. She turned her face back to center. A thin line of blood began to gather at the corner of her mouth from where her teeth had cut the inside of her cheek. Tomorrow morning, Madame Ronke said, she leaves my compound on foot. In the clothes she came in. This is my final word. She walked out. Halima followed her, glancing back once at Amara, not smiling now, uncertain for the first time. Tunde stayed. He put the bracelet down on the chair. He simply looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, Zara, I am sorry. I do not know what to think. You do not have to think anything tonight, sir. You have time. Who are you? She did not answer. When you stand, he said, you do not stand like a girl from Ninkalagu. When you speak, you drop your consonants, but you do not drop your syntax. You caught my mother's teacup. Nobody catches my mother's teacup. My mother's teacup is famously uncatchable, and you did it without looking. She was silent. He waited. She could have told him then. She could have ended it. She let the moment pass. Sir, she said finally, may I ask one thing? Yes, your grandmother, the one who lives in the West Wing. How old is she? Tunde blinked. 78. Why? Her breathing has changed in the last 3 days. I have heard it when I clean her hallway. Whistle at the end of each exhale. Left arm on her lap, not moving. She should see a cardiologist this week, not next week. Tunde stared at her. Zara, who taught you that? She was silent again. He nodded once, slowly. He picked up the bracelet. He left the room, closing the door behind him. That night, Amara did not sleep, not because she was afraid, because she was waiting for something. At 3:11 in the morning, a soft sound came from the west wing of the main house, the sound of a body meeting a floor. Amara heard it because she had been listening for it. She was on her feet in 4 seconds. Barefoot, in her thin grey uniform, she moved through the kitchen door, past the pantry, up the servants' stair. The corridors were dark, the generator was off, only the emergency inverter was running. She counted doorways as she went. Grandmother Faith Nwosu's room was the third on the left. The door was ajar. Grandmother Faith was on the tiled floor between the bed and the bedside table. Her left arm was folded under her. Her face was slack. On one side, the mouth pulled down. Her eyes were open. Her right hand was clutching the phone cord. She had tried to reach it. Amara knelt. She said the woman's name once, clearly. "Grandma Faith! Grandma Faith! I am here!" The old woman's eyes moved. Recognition. Fear. "You are having a stroke, Ma. I am going to help you. Do not try to speak." Amara turned Grandmother Faith carefully onto her side, into the recovery position. She loosened the neck of the white nightgown. She checked the pulse at the wrist, thready fast, but there. She looked at her watch, which was still on Grandmother's own wrist, a simple silver Seiko, 3:15 in the morning. She noted the time out loud. Then she picked up the phone from the bedside table. She did not call the household. She did not call Tunde. She did not call an ambulance from a general number. She dialed a number she knew by heart. 10 digits. The direct line to the head of the emergency department at Lassuth, a man named Dr. Chinedu, who did not know she was on the streets, and who, 6 months earlier, had received a discreet 20 million naira upgrade to his stroke unit's imaging equipment from a foundation whose paperwork bore a signature he had not been introduced to. He answered on the third ring, sleep in his voice. "Chinedu here. Doctor, this is a family friend of the Adeye Miss, on Kingsway Road, Ikoyi, 78-year-old woman. Left side facial droop, left arm flaccid, conscious but non-verbal. Onset within the last 30 minutes. I have her in recovery position. I need an ambulance and I need the imaging suite ready when we arrive. Do not call the household, only call the gate. Silence on the other end." Then, understood. 12 minutes. She hung up. She placed the phone down. She sat on the floor next to Grandmother Faith. She held the old woman's right hand, the one that could still squeeze, and she began quietly to talk. "Grandma, I am here. My name is not Zara. My name is Amara. I am going to tell you something I have not told your grandson. I am going to tell you because you need to hear a voice, and it should be the truth. My father was Chief Amara Coker. When he died, he left me a company and a lot of paper. I have been living on the streets of Nigeria for the last 68 days to decide what to do with the paper. Tonight you will go to hospital. You will live. I am going to make sure of that. Do you hear me?" The old woman's fingers tightened around hers. Just once. Firm. Amara continued to talk about nothing in particular, the weather, the frangipani in the garden, a story her father had told her about growing up in Abba, until, at 3:26 exactly, the sound of an ambulance came through the compound gate. Quiet, no siren, exactly as she had instructed. She let the paramedics into the room. She stepped back into the corner. 2 of them worked on Grandmother Faith. A third asked her, "Are you family?" "House staff." "I found her." "You did the recovery position?" "Yes." "Well done, Auntie. You saved 15 minutes. 15 minutes matters in stroke." By this time, the household had woken. Madame Ronka came running down the corridor in a silk dressing gown, her hair still wrapped from the night. She screamed when she saw Grandmother Faith on the stretcher. She grabbed the wrong paramedic. She demanded to know who had called the ambulance. She demanded to know why she had not been informed. "Madam," the head paramedic said, moving her firmly aside, "please give us the corridor. We are leaving in 1 minute." "Where are you taking her?" "Lassuth." "Lassuth? Are you mad? Take her to Reddington. Take her to Duchess, not Lassuth." "Lassuth is a public—" "Madam, her doctor called us. He is meeting us there. Please. 1 minute." Amara stood in the shadow behind the door. She was crying quietly, and she did not know exactly why. She had made the call clean. The old woman would live. That should have been enough. But somewhere in the last 3 minutes she had realized that Grandmother Faith had squeezed her hand at the exact moment. She had said my father was Chief Amara Coker, not on any of the other sentences. On that one. Grandmother Faith had understood every word. Tunde arrived at the front of the house 60 seconds later, half-dressed. He caught the ambulance at the gate. He climbed in with his grandmother. He looked back once, briefly, and his eyes met Amara's across the driveway. He did not smile, he did not nod, but he saw her. The ambulance left. The gate closed. Madame Ronker, standing in her dressing gown in the middle of the driveway, turned very slowly toward Amara. "You," she said. "How did you know who to call?" "I heard the ambulance number on the radio, madam. Public health advert. You heard nothing. You did something. And tomorrow I am going to find out what." She walked into the house. At Laseth, Grandmother Faith was in the imaging suite within 8 minutes of arrival. The clot was found in the left middle cerebral artery. She received thrombolysis at 4:11 in the morning. The bleed risk was managed. By 5:30 she was in the ICU, sedated, stable, prognosis cautiously good. Tunde sat in the waiting area, elbows on knees, staring at a floor tile. Dr. Chinedu came out to speak with him at 6. "Your grandmother will most likely walk again, Mr. Adeyemi. She was lucky. The person who found her did excellent first aid, and whoever called this in, they knew exactly who to call, and they knew to specify the imaging suite. That is what saved the 15 minutes. Who called it in?" The person did not give a name. She said a family friend. "A woman?" "Yes." Tunde was silent for a long moment. "Doctor, do you know a Chief Amara Coker?" Dr. Chinedu's expression did not change, but his shoulders shifted very slightly. "He died last year. Why?" "Nothing." "Thank you, doctor." Tunde drove home at 7. He did not go to work. He walked directly to the staff quarters and knocked on Amara's door. She opened it. She was in her uniform. Her eyes were dry. "Zara, or whoever you are, my grandmother will live because of you." "I am glad, sir. Come with me. Now. Not tomorrow, now. I want to know who you are. I do not care about the bracelet. I do not care about my mother. I want the truth." Before she could answer, Madame Ronker's voice came sharp across the compound. "Tunde, come here at once." He turned. His mother was standing on the veranda holding her jewelry box, opened, her hand pressed to her throat. "My pearls. My mother's pearls. They are gone. Tunde, they are gone." That woman, Amara, understood in that moment what the entire day was going to be. She stood very still and said nothing. The pearls were found by Halima within 4 minutes. They were in the pocket of Amara's other uniform, which was drying on the line outside the staff quarters. Halima produced them in the driveway. Madame Ronk wept theatrically. 2 of the compound security men were summoned and stood at attention. "Enough," Madame Ronk said, her voice suddenly cold and controlled. "Once is a mistake. Twice is a criminal. She leaves this compound now, on foot, in whatever rag she came in. And if she comes back," she looked at the security men, "break something." Tunde stepped forward. "Mummy, wait. Tunde, my mother is in ICU. This woman has looted my late mother's pearls the same night. If you love me, you will not defend her. If you love your grandmother, you will not defend her. If you say one more word, I will not come to your wedding." Tunde's mouth closed. Amara was allowed to change back into the torn brown market dress she had arrived in, kept folded in a bin bag by Small Blessing all this time. Her hair was still uncombed. Her shoes were not returned. At 4:12 in the afternoon on Thursday of that week, in the middle of a rain that hammered until the potted palms bowed sideways across the marble driveway, 2 men in halogen security uniforms dragged her barefoot across that driveway toward the gate. Her right elbow struck stone. She did not scream. She had slept in the staff quarters of that house for 11 days. She was thrown into the road at 4:15. The gate closed behind her at 4:16. Tund watched from an upstairs window, held in place by his mother's hand on his forearm. He would remember this moment later as the exact minute he understood he had been lied to his entire adult life about what his mother was. Amara stood in the rain for perhaps a minute. Then she began to walk. She walked 6 blocks down Kingsway Road with her elbow bleeding into her dress. She did not go toward the main road where a taxi might have stopped. She did not go toward her own villa, which was, in fact, only 9 minutes' drive away on Alexander Avenue. She went south, past the private hospital, past the diplomatic residences, toward the underpass where the informal sector women gathered when it rained. There she sat down under a concrete beam next to a woman she had noticed earlier in the week when she had been walking Diamond and Cartier. A woman with a plastic bag full of neatly folded but faded school teacher clothes. The woman looked at her elbow. "Auntie, you are bleeding." "Yes, sit. I have iodine." The woman opened a small pouch, poured a small measure of Dettol onto a clean strip of old cotton, and cleaned Amara's elbow with the efficiency of somebody who had once, in another life, taught 6-year-olds to blow their own noses. "What is your name, Auntie?" Amara asked. "Grace. Grace Okonkwo. You are a teacher." Grace looked up sharply. "How did you know?" "The way you cleaned. Like you have cleaned many children's knees before." Grace smiled the first real smile Amara had seen in 11 days. "I taught primary 2 for 19 years. in Surulere, until my landlord raised my rent 300% in 2 months last year, and my lawyer told me I had no case. I had no case because I could not afford the lawyer, and the lawyer told me I had no case so that I would stop calling. I have been under this bridge for 4 months. Amara nodded. She sat back against the concrete. Rain dripped through a crack somewhere in the flyover above. Grace shared a small bag of groundnuts with her. Amara said quietly, "Grace, if somebody gave you 50 billion naira tomorrow morning to fix one thing in this country, what would you fix?" Grace laughed. "One thing? Only one? Only one. Legal aid," Grace said, without hesitation. "For tenants like me. Not houses. Houses come after. First the lawyer. If I had a lawyer that day, I would still have my flat. All of us, under this bridge, most of us are here because a paper we could not read said we had lost." Amara looked at her for a long moment. "Grace, thank you. For what? You just decided how somebody is going to spend 50 billion naira." Grace laughed again, thinking it was a joke. She did not know it was not. They sat under the bridge for 2 more hours. Amara asked Grace about the other women there. Grace pointed each one out: the seamstress evicted after her landlord's second wife wanted the shop, the widow whose in-laws had taken the family flat within a week of her husband's funeral, the young mother whose employer had thrown her out for refusing his advances. Not one of them, Grace said, had ever spoken to a lawyer. At 7:40 in the evening, a Toyota Sienna pulled up to the curb. Musa got out. He walked to the underpass. He stood at a respectful distance. He did not speak. Amara stood up. She squeezed Grace's shoulder once. "Grace, I will find you again. Very soon, please stay here." Grace looked at Musa, then back at Amara. She did not ask questions. She had at 41 learned when a question would come back to hurt her. "I am not going anywhere, Auntie." "Where would I go?" Amara walked to the car. Musa opened the back door. She got in. "Ma, Musa, take me home. Not the villa, the office. And call Ada, and call Chinedu, and call the foundation trustees. I want a meeting at 9 tonight. And I want a room booked at Eco Hotel Presidential Suite for the 11th of November. Ma, that is 16 days away. That is enough time." 16 days later, on the 11th of November, Amara Coker sat in front of a mirror in the presidential suite of Eco Hotel and Suites on Victoria Island and asked the woman doing her makeup to stop. "Ma, take it off please, all of it." "Ma, the gala starts in 90 minutes. "I know." The makeup artist wiped her face clean. Amara looked at herself in the mirror. Her hair was still uncombed the way she had worn it under the bridge. There was a small scab on her right elbow. There was a small scar on the inside of her lower lip from where Madame Ronque had slapped her. She had bathed. She was clean, but she looked like a woman who had come from somewhere hard. She turned to Musa, who was standing by the door. "The dress?" Musa held it up on a hanger. The torn brown market dress, laundered but not repaired. "Perfect. Ma, are you sure? They need to see what they threw out, Musa, not what I own." At 6:48 that same evening, at the Adeyemi compound on Kingsway Road, Madame Ronque Adeyemi was zipping herself into a champagne-colored gown by a Lagos designer whose atelier had been booked for 6 months. Halima Balagun was next door at her father's mansion in an Emerald Alexander McQueen. Chief Ibrahim Balagun was already in his black 3-piece, sipping brandy in his study, mentally rehearsing his acceptance of the 12 billion naira Coker Foundation infrastructure grant that the newly surfaced Coker chairwoman was expected, at some point in the evening, to announce. Tunde Adeyemi was already at Echo Hotel. He was in the ballroom, in a plain black dinner jacket, greeting board members and government officials. Grandmother Faith Nwosu had been discharged from Lesuth that same morning. She was not the household believed at the gala. She was the household believed at home, resting, with a private nurse. The household was wrong. At 7:03, 3 black SUVs and a silver Rolls-Royce Ghost pulled up to the covered arrival portico at Eco Hotel. Musa got out of the lead SUV first. He was in a black suit, radio in his ear, 4 men behind him. The Rolls-Royce door opened. Grandmother Faith Nwosu was helped out into a wheelchair in a simple white lace boo-boo, her hair wrapped in white, alert, watching everything with quiet eyes. Then Amara stepped out. She was in the torn brown market dress. Her feet were in the same broken slip-on sandals she had worn under the bridge. Around her neck, on a plain leather cord, was a small brass key, the key to her father's private study in the Ikoyi villa. Nothing else, no jewelry, no handbag, no makeup. Behind her, 4 lawyers with brown leather briefcases stepped out of the 3rd SUV. The doorman at Eco Hotel opened the doors without asking a question. They had been briefed by the general manager 40 minutes earlier. They had been told to bow. Inside, the master of ceremonies, a familiar face from Nigerian television, was 6 minutes into the welcome address when his earpiece went hot. He listened. His face changed. He looked to the wings, saw Musa's small nod. He turned back to the room. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please. I must interrupt the program for a moment that I did not expect to have in my lifetime. Tonight's mystery honoree, the newly announced chairwoman of Coker Global Holdings and, as of last week's International Financial Edition, one of the 4 wealthiest women in the world, please rise for chairwoman Amara Coker. 300 billionaires rose. Slowly, not because they had been asked, because the rumor had run around the room. In 4 seconds, the mystery chairwoman had just walked in from the lobby in a rag. The doors of the ballroom opened. Musa led. Then the wheelchair pushed by a nurse in white, Grandmother Faith. Then Amara, barefoot in her broken sandals, walking without haste. Then the 4 lawyers. Madame Ronke Adeyemi, standing at table number 3 near the front, dropped her flute of champagne. It struck the floor and shattered into 6 pieces at her feet. She did not look down. Halima Balagan, standing at table number 4, made a small sound in the back of her throat that only her sister heard. Chief Ibrahim Balagan, at table number 1, stared at the woman in the tattered brown dress for 4 full seconds before he began, very slowly, to sit down without meaning to. Tunde Adeyemi, at the head of table number 6, did not move at all. His hand, which had been reaching for his water glass, stopped in mid-air. Amara walked to the stage. She climbed the 3 steps herself. She did not accept the offered hand of the MC. At the top she turned and faced the room. She did not go to the microphone. Instead, she looked at Grandmother Faith, who was now positioned at the front of the stage in her wheelchair. The old woman lifted one hand, the right one, the one she could still lift, and pressed it against her own chest. It was a small gesture, barely visible from the back of the room. Amara returned it, her own hand, to her own chest, briefly, and then she stepped to the microphone. She did not clear her throat. Good evening. My name is Amara Coker. I am 32 years old. My father, Chief Emmanuel Coker, died on the 14th of July last year, leaving me a company, a foundation, and, according to a magazine cover that came out last week, a personal net worth that I do not recognize as belonging to any one human being. Thank you for standing. Please sit. The room sat, slowly. 87 days ago, I stopped being Amara Coker. I put on a market dress that a woman named Blessing lent me. I walked into Lagos. I slept in 6 cities. I ate what was given. I was slapped once, kicked twice, spat at 3 times, and offered work as a wife once. I was also fed, without charge, on 9 separate occasions, 3 of them by women who had less than I did. I did this because the Coker Global Foundation is about to make its largest ever grant 50 billion naira, and I did not trust the consultants who told me where to put it. I wanted to see the country myself. Without the name, without the driver, without the shield. She paused. For the last 11 of those days, I lived in the staff quarters of a compound on Kingsway Road. Ikoyi. I scrubbed bathrooms. I walked Pomeranians called Diamond and Cartier. I was accused of stealing a diamond bracelet I never touched. I was accused of stealing a set of pearls I never touched. I was slapped in the face by the mistress of that house on Tuesday morning. I was dragged out into the rain by 2 halogen security men on Thursday afternoon at exactly 4:12. And at 3:11 this morning, 6 days ago, I heard a woman fall in a bedroom on the 2nd floor, and I called an ambulance for her because the household did not. Grandmother Faith Nwosu, in her wheelchair, was crying quietly. Amara continued, very softly. Some of you know the mistress of that house. Some of you are here as her friends. Madame Adeyemi, please stand. Madame Ronke did not stand. Madame Adeyemi, please stand up now. Ronke stood. Her face was completely white. The champagne was still on the floor by her shoe. Madam, do you remember what you said to me on the driveway of your compound at 4:12 on Thursday afternoon of last week? You said, and I quote, throw her into the road. If she returns, break something. Do you remember? Ronke's mouth opened. No sound. You may sit. She sat. Miss Balagan, please stand. Halima stood. She was, for the first time in her adult life, unable to arrange her face. Miss Balagan, do you remember what you said to me on the 3rd of November, in the sitting room of that same house, in the presence of your sister while I was arranging flowers? You said, have you ever, in your life, seen 100,000 naira with your own eyes? I did not answer you honestly at the time. I will answer now. In the past financial year, I have personally authorized capital movements totaling 4.1 billion naira. Not million, billion, in one signature. I did not correct you then because I was there to listen, not to teach. Somebody at the back of the room made a small strangled sound and then went silent. Chief Balagan, please stand. Chief Ibrahim Balagan stood, very slowly. He was a large man. He looked smaller. Chief, on the 22nd of October, you attempted, through an intermediary, to place a payment of $4,217 with a small Lagos private security firm to obtain, I quote from the intermediary's message, which was sent to a firm you did not know was owned by Coker Global internal papers on the Coker succession, sensitive material, any personal weaknesses of the new chairwoman. I have the message. My lawyers have the message. My lawyers will be sharing it at 9 tomorrow morning with the Corporate Affairs Commission, with the Nigerian Financial Reporting Council, and with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. You may sit. He did not sit. He stood, staring, and after a moment he sat because his legs made the decision for him. Amara turned slightly. She raised her hand once. Musa stepped forward with a small speaker. Some of you may be wondering how I remember these conversations so precisely. I remember them because I did not remember them. I recorded them, everyone, from the moment I stepped inside the Ademi compound. Musa, play 20 seconds of file 7, please. The speaker crackled. Halima's own voice came out of it, clear, crisp, laughing. You still smell like frying oil and suffering. A person should know her level before sleeping under a billionaire's roof. Somebody at table number 9 gasped. Amara raised her hand. Musa stopped the playback. That is enough. Nobody in this room needs to hear more. You have heard what a Nigerian public figure says about a woman she believed to be a homeless village girl. You are welcome to draw your own conclusions. She turned to the podium and gripped its edges lightly. I did not come here tonight to shame 3 people. I came here to make 3 announcements. First, the Coker Global Foundation is withdrawing its expected 12 billion naira infrastructure grant to Balagan Petroleum. That partnership is no longer viable, and the reasons will be filed in writing with the regulatory bodies tomorrow morning. Second, my lawyers, with my instruction, will be filing a civil defamation and criminal false accusation complaint against Madame Ronke Adeyemi and Miss Halima Balagan for 2 staged theft accusations against my person on the 10th and 12th of last month. We are not seeking prison time. We are seeking their public and permanent removal from every charity board and every public honor they currently hold. That is all. Third, she turned to Grandmother Faith, Mrs. Faith Nwasu, who is 78 years old, and who on this past Sunday held my hand in a bedroom on the 2nd floor of a compound where nobody else came to see if she was alive, is from this evening the honorary lifetime trustee of the Coker Global Foundation. Her responsibilities will include exactly one thing, telling me when I am wrong. She paused. That is all for the announcements. There is one more thing. She turned to table number 6. Mr. Adeyemi. Tunji stood. For the last 3 months I have declined every meeting with Adeyemi Digital. I declined because I did not know who was running your company. I now know. You are running your company. You are honest. Your bottom-of-pyramid thesis is good. It is not brilliant, but it is honest, and it is yours, and honesty is rarer than brilliance in the room I stand in tonight. So, the Coker Foundation will consider, and I mean consider, not approve a partnership with Adeyemi Digital. On merit. Through independent evaluation. Not because I owe you a rescue. Not because you rescued me 87 days ago outside a chicken republic. On merit only. Do you accept terms, Ram? Tunde looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, into the silent ballroom in a very steady voice. Chairwoman Coker, if Adeyemi Digital does not deserve that partnership on merit, we do not want it. We need a mirror in this country, not a bridge. We need people who will look at us honestly, tell us where we fall short, and refuse us until we are ready. Thank you for offering to be that mirror. That is a gift greater than any partnership. We accept your terms. The ballroom was completely silent for 2 seconds. Then a single pair of hands began to clap. At the back, an old man in a plain grey agbada, name unknown. Then another pair. Then, slowly, 300 billionaires stood up. Not for Amara, for Tunde. Amara let it happen. She stepped away from the microphone. She walked down the 3 steps of the stage. She crossed to Grandmother Faith's wheelchair. She knelt beside it. She took the old woman's right hand. Grandma, I am sorry it took 11 days. Grandmother Faith squeezed her hand once, firm, just as she had at 3:15 that Sunday morning. She could not speak yet, but she squeezed twice more. Twice more meant thank you. The consequences arrived slowly, the way real consequences arrive. Not in 1 week. Over many. By the following Monday morning, the recording from table number 3 had leaked, not from Amara's side. Amara's lawyers had not been authorized to release anything. It leaked from the phone of a young woman at table number 14 who had been quietly filming the entire evening for her Snapchat story and who understood, watching the clip back at 3 in the morning, that she was holding something bigger than her account. She uploaded a 2-minute cut to Twitter at 5:42 on Sunday morning. By 9, it had 100,000 views. By Monday evening, it had crossed 6 million. Halima Balogun woke on Monday morning to 27 missed calls and one message from her father. Do not leave the house. Do not answer the phone. Pack for London. By Wednesday, she was on a British Airways flight out of Murtala Mohammed at 3 in the afternoon. She would not return to Lagos for 18 months. She never publicly married. She never publicly explained. Chief Ibrahim Balogun's Wednesday morning began with a knock on his gate from 3 officers of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and continued over the following 90 days through a formal Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria investigation into irregularities that had been buried until the Coker legal team's forensic accountants had pulled them out for 11 years. He was not jailed. He was not required to be. His refinery operating licenses were suspended pending review. His personal fortune, on paper, halved in 6 months. He remained a wealthy man by any ordinary measure. He simply stopped being a powerful one. Madame Ronke Adeyemi's Monday was quiet at first. Then, at 10:12 in the morning, the Lagos Widows Empowerment Trust released a short statement removing her from their board with immediate effect. At 11:40, the Adeyemi Family Educational Foundation, over which she had thought she held total control, met in an emergency session called by the other trustees and voted 6-1 to strip her of chairwomanship. By the following Friday, she had lost all 4 board positions she had held for a combined 31 years. She was not jailed, she was not fined more than she could afford. But something else happened that hurt her worse than either. Her Diamond Club membership at Shoprite Ikoyi was quietly revoked by the chain's regional manager after 3 other Diamond Club members, women whose husbands did business with people who did business with Coker Global, requested it. On the following Tuesday at 2:12 in the afternoon, for the first time in 30 years, Madame Ronke Adeyemi stood in the ordinary queue at Shoprite Ikoyi behind a housekeeper carrying 2 loaves of Butterfield bread and a bottle of peak milk. The housekeeper did not know who she was standing in front of. The housekeeper smiled at her, politely, and offered her the space ahead. Ronke declined. She stood in the queue for 11 minutes. She paid. She left. She did not cry. She did not scream. She went home, sat on the covered veranda where she had once ordered a woman thrown into the rain, and she did not speak to anyone for the rest of the afternoon. Tunde Adeyemi did not visit his mother for 2 weeks. He did not shout at her. He did not disown her. He simply stopped coming home. He moved into a smaller apartment near his office. On the 3rd Sunday, he came for lunch. He sat opposite her at her long dining table. He ate everything on his plate. Then he stood up and said, "Mummy, I love you. I will always be your son. But I will not marry a woman you approve of again. I will not build my life around your approvals. I need you to understand that. Please pass the water." She passed the water. He said nothing else. He came for lunch every 2nd Sunday from that point forward. The Coker Global Foundation launched on the 14th of December that year the Dignity Housing Initiative. It had 2 components. First, 3,000 transitional housing units built across Lagos, Aba, Onitsha, Kano, Ibadan, and Port Harcourt, in partnership with each state Ministry of Housing on the Finnish Housing First model that had reduced long-term homelessness in Helsinki by close to 70% over the previous decade. Second, and just as important, a legal aid clinic staffed by 40 paralegals trained specifically to defend informal sector tenants against unlawful eviction and predatory rent increases. The clinic's first head of casework was Grace Okonkwo, 41 years old, former primary school teacher, formerly, for 141 days, homeless under a Lagos flyover. Amara found Grace on the 18th of December at the same spot under the underpass on Kingsway. She wore an ordinary linen dress this time, not the market rag. She sat down next to Grace on the ground. "Grace, auntie, I owe you an apology. My name is not what I told you. My name is Amara Coker." Grace looked at her. She was silent for a long time. "So you are the one on the news?" "Yes." "Ha! I told you 50 billion naira should go to legal aid, and now you tell me you are the one with the 50 billion naira. Auntie, why did you come and eat groundnuts with me?" because I needed to know what 50 billion naira looked like on the ground before I signed the paperwork, and because I was thrown out of a house and I did not know where else to go for one night. Grace laughed. Not a bitter laugh, a tired one. So, now what? Now I am offering you a job, not a gift. A job. Head of casework for the Dignity Housing Initiative Legal Clinic. Salary 600,000 naira a month, plus pension, plus housing allowance. You will manage 40 paralegals. You will decide which tenant cases we take. I do not want your gratitude, I want your knowledge. You have knowledge I do not have and cannot buy. Say yes or no. Grace looked at Amara for a full minute. Then she stood up. She dusted off the back of her dress. She held out her hand. Yes, Chairwoman Coker. Amara stood up. She took the hand. She did not shake it hard, the way people shake hands when they are pretending. She shook it once, briefly, firmly, the way people shake hands when the deal is already done. Welcome to the Foundation, Head of Casework Okonkwo. Grace smiled, small, Lanty. Ma, just call me Grace only if you call me Amara. They walked out from under the flyover together. Musa, standing beside a plain car at the curb, opened the back door for both of them. Grace hesitated once at the door, then got in. Amara followed. The car drove away. Grace's first case as head of casework came in on the 4th of January. A 23-year-old market trader in Mushin, a young woman named Bola, had been locked out of her one-room flat by her landlord after refusing to pay a mid-lease rent increase of 280%. The landlord had thrown her mattress, her cooking pot, and her Bible into the corridor. She had slept 2 nights at her cousin's compound in Ojota before somebody there heard about the new clinic on the radio and told her to walk in. Grace listened for 40 minutes without interrupting once. She took notes. She asked, at the end, only 3 questions. Did the landlord give a written notice? No. Was there a signed tenancy agreement? Yes, 1 page, handwritten. Did Bola still have the receipts for her past rent payments? Some of them in a plastic bag at her cousin's. Grace closed her notebook. Bola, go home to your cousin. Bring the plastic bag here tomorrow morning at 8. We will file at magistrate court within 4 days. In the meantime, one of our paralegals will drive with you to the flat this afternoon and stand there while you retrieve any personal items that are still inside. The landlord will not touch you again with our man and. Do you understand? Bola stared at her. Auntie, how much is this going to cost me? Nothing. Not 1 naira. Not today. Not next month. Not ever. The Coker Foundation pays. You do not. Bola began to cry. Grace let her cry. She poured her a small glass of water. She placed it in front of her. She said nothing for 2 minutes. Then Grace said quietly, Bola, listen to me. I want you to remember something. You are not a beggar today. You are not receiving a gift. You are a Nigerian citizen exercising a right. The right belongs to you. It has always belonged to you. Nobody was defending it for you before, because nobody was paid to. Now somebody is paid to. That is the only difference. Do you understand me? Bola nodded. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Auntie, thank you. Do not thank me. Bring the plastic bag tomorrow at 8. Bola won her flat back within 11 days. The landlord was ordered to refund the 2 months of overpaid rent and to pay court costs. He did not appeal because Grace's paralegal, a former law student named Chuka, had walked him quietly through the maths of what an appeal would cost him. Bola moved back in on a fresh, properly registered tenancy agreement that Grace had drafted herself using a template Amara's legal team had adapted from a Housing First program in Denver. Bola was case number 1. By the end of the first year, the clinic would take on 2,439 cases. It would win or settle favorably 1,986 of them. The rest would end in mediation, in withdrawals, or in the 24 cases where a paralegal advised a client that their tenancy had, unfortunately, been legally terminated and their best path was rehousing rather than litigation. Nobody was told they had no case simply so a lawyer could stop taking their calls. 6 months later, in May, the independent evaluation of Adeyemi Digital's proposed partnership with the Coker Foundation was completed and delivered to Amara's desk in a plain brown envelope. Amara read it in one sitting. The recommendation was to proceed, with conditions. She initialed the recommendation and sent it forward for board approval, without a phone call, without a meeting, without any communication with Tunde beforehand. Tunde received the news the same day every other applicant received their news, by formal letter, through the ordinary channels. He read the letter in his office at Adeola Odeku Street. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He walked to his window and looked at the Lagos skyline for a long time. Then he sat down at his desk and began to draft the conditions. Grandmother Faith Nwosu made her first public appearance as honorary lifetime trustee of the Coker Global Foundation at a small ceremony in her garden in Ikoyi in May of that same year. She had regained the use of her left arm through daily physiotherapy. Her speech had returned, slightly slower than before, and now which she claimed more time to choose her words. She held Tunde's hand as she spoke to a small group of foundation staff and one photographer. "My grandson." She paused. She still paused often. "I have watched you build a good company. I am proud of you. I want to tell you one thing tonight, in this garden, in front of these people, because I want you to remember it after I am gone." Tunde bent his head slightly. "The worth of a person, my boy, is not in what they own. It is not in what they have earned. It is in how they treat somebody they believe owns nothing. Because sooner or later, everybody in this life meets that person. And what you do in that moment, not what you say. What you do decides who you were the whole time." She held his hand very tightly for a moment. Her right hand. The strong one. "Remember that, even when you are richer than Coker, especially then." He nodded. He said nothing. She turned to Amara, who was standing quietly at the edge of the garden with Grace beside her. "And you, my daughter, you did a hard thing 87 days for. Do not do it again. Next time, come and see me first. I could have told you where to put the 50 billion, and you would not have had to eat groundnuts under a flyover." Amara laughed, actually laughed. For the first time in a long time. "Yes, Grandma. 6 months after that, on a Saturday afternoon in November, exactly 1 year after the gala at Eco Hotel, Amara Coker and Tunde Adeyemi were photographed for the first time together in public at the opening of the 4th Dignity housing block in Onitsha. They were not holding hands. They were standing beside Grace Okonkwo, listening to a former tenant explain how the legal clinic had recovered his mother's flat. Amara was in a plain white blouse and blue jeans. Tunde was in a grey shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Neither of them wore jewelry. They did not marry that year. They did not marry the following year. They did marry quietly at Grandmother Faith's house in Ikoyi in the 3rd year, in front of 40 guests on a Thursday morning at 10. Grandmother Faith, then 81, walked the 4 steps of the ceremony aisle on her own, without a stick. The photograph is on Grace's desk. The photograph is not on the internet. If you have listened this far, and I know that many of you have, because I can feel the quiet in your house, even from here, I want to say one small thing before I go. I have lived in Lagos long enough to know that the story I have just told you is bigger than most. The gala. The 300 billionaires. The 50 billion naira. Most stories do not end in a ballroom. Most stories end quietly. A cleaner is dismissed without her wages. A tenant is locked out on a Friday. Her grandmother falls in a bedroom and nobody hears. Nobody rises to be photographed. Nobody is given a trusteeship. The rain stops. The next day begins and nothing changes. But the pattern underneath this story that is not big, that is not rare, that is Tuesday. On any Tuesday afternoon in Lagos, in Abuja, in Nairobi, in Johannesburg, in Kingston, in Atlanta, in London, in your own city, somebody is being watched by somebody they underestimated. Somebody is being judged in the first 7 seconds. Somebody is being spoken to as if they are a piece of furniture. And the person doing the watching, the one being judged, is remembering. I want to ask you one question tonight. Not a hard one. Only one. Think back to the last person you were rudest to this week. Maybe a driver. Maybe a shop attendant. Maybe a woman who was cleaning a table you wanted. Maybe somebody you passed on the road and did not see. If you found out tomorrow morning that person owned the ground you were standing on, how would you feel about the way you spoke to them yesterday? That is the whole story. That is the only story. The names in this drama are new to you tonight, but the pattern is old. Kindness costs nothing. Cruelty cost everything, and somebody somewhere in your city right now is quietly writing you down in their notebook. Do me one favor. Be somebody they write down kindly. Good night, my people. Sleep well, and I will see you in the next chapter.